Manage participants.
Hi, this is Danielle from Kepperling Preservation Services with Jonathan. We're having our first virtual preservation coffee break. I have to remember what I named things. So we're going to talk today. We're trying to find ways to connect while everybody's kind of in a virtual lockdown. And one of the ways that we thought we could do that is with our coffee break. We do have a Wednesday meeting usually with coffee anyway, so we're just inviting you into that. And we were talking about things that people could do. So when we were talking about what we were going to do, what we were going to talk about, we were talking about things that people can do while you're spending more time at home to help maintain your older building. And in addition, maybe get a head start on some projects and save some money for yourself. So we welcome questions. I haven't done this before, so if you have questions, I think there's like a chat box that will pop up, and I can either I can just answer the questions as they come in. But thank you for joining us. And so, do you want to talk about your idea, Jonathan, first, of like how somebody could save money on their project right now?
Oh, right now, while we're under the stay-at-home order, maybe
I've been calling it lockdown.
or lockdown, quarantine. We've been calling it everything, but probably stay at home. Like little simple things, like if you're going to get your windows done or your doors done, maybe you can start stripping the paint. It's something anybody can do. It'll save time later, and it's also moving your project forward, even though that contractors can't start doing jobs until after this is done. But that doesn't mean that you can't start it, which then saves you time, money, and actually moves the job forward.
Right. And there's several different methods to remove paint, and most of them you can buy online, so you wouldn't even have to go out to get it. You can use chemical stripper. You can use speed heater. The speed heater system, I know I did a podcast with Catherine from Speed Heater, so if you're looking for that, if you look on the Practical Preservation podcast, you can hear her talk about that product. We either use that or the chemical strippers because of the lead paint issues. The chemicals keep it. The chemicals have their own issues, but they at least keep the lead wet, and so you don't get the lead dust and things like that. So if you're stripping paint, that's one thing to look at. High quality scrapers. Jonathan likes, they start with a B.
Banco or Baco or
Baco.
something?
I think it's a German company, and you can buy those on Amazon too. I know I buy at least the replacement blades on Amazon, and there's some paint stores locally that sell.
Yeah, the only way we buy replacement blades is if we break one, because we just buy a diamond sharpener and just touch them back up, and that keeps them sharp like day one.
Yeah. So that's something that you can do, because I know we talk a lot about like the 80-20 in projects where 80% of it's semi-skilled. Paint removal is it takes a lot of time, and rather than paying us to strip your paint, if you have it stripped already, then you only have to pay for the repair work. So, or anybody else, but it's just something that most people can do if you pay attention to detail and have the detailed scrapers. So also while you're home, you want to, start thinking about your preventive maintenance, and maybe developing a maintenance plan within your house, so that you can have a plan and kind of manage all of your maintenance. Now, I do have a checklist in front of me so that I don't miss anything, so I'm not walking around the building looking at everything. So, but you want to start at the top, and you want to look at the roof. Your metal roofing should last pretty long, but you need to probably repaint it, and there's rubberized paints that move with the metal
special
roofing.
Metal paint.
Yeah, every 5 to 10 years. But the rest of your roof should last 20 to 50 years. But you want to look for any pieces that need to be reattached, any loose or missing pieces, especially if there's been wind or something like that. look for any decay, if it's wood, if it's starting to cup, missing pieces, anything like that. You look and see, stand back and look and see if the roof's level or if it's sagging. Make sure there's no moisture from the attic or the upper floors getting in. Look for deterioration. If it's dry and properly maintained, the structural part of the roof should last indefinitely. There shouldn't be any reason that needs to be replaced. Then you want to look at your roof flashing, the metal around the penetrations or in the valleys or at the
chimneys,
yeah,
the drip edges, all that stuff.
yeah. Look at your gutters and your downspouts. Make sure your gutters are hung snug and up and straight, and not exactly straight. You want to make sure they're all up, but then they need to slope towards the downspout.
Yep. But no sags in spots so
Yeah.
that it collects water there.
Yeah. Clean out your gutters in the spring and the fall. Check if there's any 45-degree elbows. Make sure that there's water. The water's flowing through those too. If there's any rust or that they need to be repainted, just double check everything. Most older homes have half round and round gutters, and that can all be resoldered or repaired, or you can just get new pieces. And you can just change out a section. They come in what you have to find out from the roofing store how long the sections are, and especially roofing store still has the half rounds. I don't know if you can get those at a big box store. We never do. So I
don't carry them, and so sometimes we gotta search for different ones.
Yeah,
because they come in different size half rounds and everything. If somebody tells you they don't exist, it's not true.
So, and then look at like your cornice and your decorative pieces up at the roof level, the wood part around the top of the house. Make sure that they're in good repair. There's not water getting behind it. Check and see if it needs to be repainted. Your chimney, is your chimney sagging? Is it leaning? Is it bowing? Are the mortar joints tight? Because if the mortar joints aren't tight, there's water getting into your roof system or your walls. Is the chimney cap on? Are there any loose or missing bricks? If the pointing's done right with lime-based mortar, it should last 50 or more years. And if there are spots where there's water getting in, then you'll start to notice that, and you can periodically, repoint that, but you shouldn't need that. If there's any missing or deteriorated bricks, you can either replace those in kind, where you can go find softer bricks. There are people who salvage brick, or you can rebuild it with a product called Lithomix. That's up to you. That's a substitute material question. So now we've kind of taken care of the whole top of the roof. And so then you look at your windows and doors. The windows should last 100 years or more. We tell people, restore your windows rather than replace them. Doors, if they're underneath, a porch or something like that, they should last indefinitely. You want to check to see if there's if they open or close smoothly, if they're operable. You need to, and some of those
weather tight.
Weather.
Like if it's got weather stripping or not in it.
Yeah, and and then that would, they need to be repainted. They need to be reglazed. They might need weather strip. If you have the pulley weight style windows, reattach the chains. Chains don't usually break, but reattaching ropes is a big thing.
Usually the problem with the chains is they either got wet and started to rust, or a painter painted them.
Right.
And they're usually the two reasons that you only need to replace those.
Yeah. Look for broken glass, and is the glazing secure? We usually use a linseed oil based glazing, because it does, it's more traditional, and it allows the window to work the way it was designed to. Make sure that your stops and everything are there. The window glass should last indefinitely. You want to repair broken glass, to make sure there's not water infiltration. And then looking at the frame of the window, the part that actually is sitting in the wall. So when we were talking before, I guess we were just talking about the sash.
Yep. The two pieces that move up and down are sash.
Yeah.
The window is the overall unit, and then you got this, like the side jambs, the head, and the sill.
Is the frame.
Yep. And that's all one. It's considered the frame unit.
Yeah. So are any of that showing signs of rot rust, insect damage on a door. Is the threshold rotted? Are there any open joints around the frame or the trim? Check for water infiltration while you're walking around. Painting probably every 5 to 8 years, which isn't ideal, but that's the kind of paint we have now. Especially depending on if the weather, if the sun hits that part of the house all day long, it does not work as well. Repair, small parts. If a corner just needs to be replaced, or their water got into a joint, there's epoxy repairs and things, but you can make note of that and kind of monitor the condition. Look at the thresholds or the sills and their repair or replacement. Check to see if there's any movement, because that, if the building's continuing to move, there's a problem. You have to get probably an engineer to come out and look at that. And then caulk around the edges as necessary. Typically on a masonry wood, we use elastic, high quality sealant.
And the sealant, on the two surfaces that it's connecting to, it's highly important you get the appropriate ones, because if you're going to do it outside and you got a wood trim next to a masonry unit and you're just going to use like latex caulk, it's not going to last very long.
Right.
It's just going to compound the problem.
Look at your hardware. Is it operational? Is it in good repair? Hardware should last indefinitely. Your sash cords, we talked about, those might need to be replaced. Look at your weather strip, or your weatherization. Is the weather strip in good repair? Do the storm windows fit tightly? Are the screens damaged? There are places locally, I know, at least in Lancaster County, that you can take your screens off, take them in, and as long as you give them the frame, they can put new screens in for you. And it's really easy. And then you don't have bugs in your house.
And if you don't, it's not really that hard. You can go to your local box store, and they have, it only takes a few tools, and it's pretty self-explanatory, because it's really just like a roller that pushes a seal in, and it's on the utility knife.
And the new,
they're very simple.
I was gonna say the new screens are softer. They're more of a plastic than the old like metal that I remember.
Yep.
And I think that's actually what we still have at our house. But to look and see how tight everything is. You might need to repair or replace the weather stripping, men's screens or storm windows. But now your window. So now we've dealt with the roof, the windows, the doors. Now you're wanting to walk around the outside of the house and the inside at the basement level and at the foundation. When you're outside, you want to make sure the water's draining away from the foundation. So all of your landscaping needs to slope away. I was actually looking at a house today for some of my consulting work, and they've been fighting with PennDOT for like 10 years because PennDOT repaved, and all of the water comes off of the road right onto their porch, and everything underneath is just rotting. And so like it's just a nightmare. You need to keep the water away from your building.
And that's just not groundwater. That's coming off the roof too.
Yeah.
So you need to keep your downspouts pointing away also.
Yeah, and you can put French drains, and you can do all
many ways of doing it.
But just make sure when you're landscaping, when you're mulching this spring, make sure everything's sloping away from the foundation. Look and see if your foundation is masonry, which most are, even if it's a wood frame house. Is it flaking, crumbling, spalling, which is like when it starts to get the effervescent, I think that's the right word, where it starts to lift off on the top layer and kind of gets powdery. Yep. Is it cracking? Are you having any loose or missing masonry? Is the mortar still in good shape? Properly maintained, that masonry should last indefinitely. But if there's water getting in, that's when you start having the flaking, the crumbling, the spalling, the cracking, the missing mortar, because the water's getting in during the freeze-thaw cycle and pushing it out. So if you repoint, that should last 50 years or more. And then if there's water-related repairs, there's several different ways to approach water in the basement. But if you're just going around and kind of doing your maintenance, your preventive maintenance checklist, these are things you just want to take note of. And then if you have specifics, let us know, and we can.
Because there's a different way to handle the inside coming up from inside the basement than outside the basement.
Right. And a lot of really old houses were built right on top of springs so that they had fresh water. So that, prevents a whole, or creates a whole other
thing.
A whole other issue. Look and see if your walls are bowing or bulging, because that's telling you that it's moving. And, we're back to, then we need to talk to probably a structural engineer that specializes in older buildings to figure out why it's moving. Because if you have some cracks and nothing's moving and it's kind of just settled, that's not usually in an older house anything to worry about. It's when something has happened that changed it. And we see that a lot when people have like cut the support beams or things like that.
Just recently I had to repair a house that a solar system guy put it on from the barn to the house, but he put the wire on so tight that it was pulling the side of the wall out anytime the wind blew really hard, which
caused the wall to start to bow.
And then so we had to go have them remove it, put the wires underground, and then put the threaded rod the whole way through to pull it back in, but not so bent so much that it wanted to break and come back loose.
Right.
So there are ways of handling it, and there's many different ways that can happen.
Yeah. So you just need to be aware and pay attention to that if something, because that had been installed for maybe 10 years and they had just started to notice issues.
Yep.
And so just be aware of that. Is there algae, moss, vines growing on the foundation? You want to remove all of the vines, even though that's I think the English country look. You want to remove that all from any masonry walls, because that actually is pulling the mortar out as it climbs up. But and it also keeps the moisture trapped against the wall. But the other thing, if you're having algae or moss, that's telling you there's extra water somewhere that area probably needs to get dried out, whether it's extra vegetation there or something's happening that's going to cause deterioration to occur faster. The downspouts, and Jonathan kind of talked about this a little bit, make sure that you're draining away from the building, check to make sure that, all of your downspouts are going in the direction that you need them to, that your downspouts are connected. So that's the foundation. So you want to look at the foundation from the inside and the outside, and just kind of take note of that. And then your exterior features, so your porches, your stairs, your railing, your cornice and brackets, which we kind of talked about a little bit with the roof. Are they all in good repair? Are there any elements missing? The big thing with like Victorian and later houses are the internal gutter systems, Yankee gutter systems, built-in gutters. They have like a bunch of different names. They're all the same thing. They are like a trough inside that the cornice fits around. It allowed you to have a fancy cornice without having a gutter on the outside, but it also then created a place where you can't see easily. And when the water starts to get in there, you don't notice it till the cornice is rotting. So I recommend anybody with an internal gutter, check it like twice a year when you're cleaning out your gutters. If there's any solder joints that need to be resoldered, resolder them.
Raw spots, anything that looks out of the ordinary, get them fixed immediately. Because other words, it's going to be a complete tear off all that decorative trim and everything, probably replace about 50% of it or more. And it's not just because it's metal lined, it's not just putting the metal lining back in. You have to have somebody that's smart enough to know how to bend it and solder it, because if you don't do it that way, it makes it worse.
And the other thing is, and a lot of more modern contractors will tell you, oh, just roof right over it, put a gutter on the outside, but that changes the whole look of your house. And the other thing,
still doesn't get rid of the problem.
And the other thing that happens too, once you're coming through the trim, you're actually coming through the structural too. So there's a lot of things that have to happen to fix that. It's an expensive repair. So if you can catch things early and make sure that it doesn't get to that point, it's a lot better. But check, all of the exterior features. Make sure, is the paint cracked, faded, or peeling paint often. I mean, sometimes it's just weathering, deterioration. Sometimes it means that there's water getting back behind. So you just need to look and see, do you see signs of water coming through? Your exterior walls, kind of the same as your foundation. If you have masonry, is the masonry or stucco flaking, crumbling? Are there any bricks or stones missing? Is the mortar loose or crumbling? If you have wood siding, is it cracked, loose, rotting? Is it split? Did the courses of siding, are they straight, or are they kind of waving, like they're coming off of, like the fasteners are coming unattached? And masonry units will last for centuries with proper maintenance. You just need to address the moisture issues properly. The pointing, again, should last 50 years or more. The clapboards with proper maintenance should last 150 years, if not more. You just might need to do, periodic reattachment and then partial replacement if there's a board that's really rotted, or, and those will usually be the boards that are closer to the bottom because the moisture is wicking up. Make sure there's not water getting into the building, which we started at the roof. That's the whole reason of maintaining your building, is to make sure there's water, there's not water getting in. Is the paint, peeling, cracking, blistering, chalking. If you need to clean your masonry, use the most gentle method possible. Don't go in with a high power washer, because sandblaster. You run the risk of damaging the face of either the brick or the stone. If the masonry on your brick, or if your brick masonry has been painted, or your brick wall has been painted, you can repaint that. I recommend a lime-based paint because that allows them but if it hasn't been painted with a lime-based paint, you can repaint with whatever was painted, probably latex. If it hasn't been painted before, the preservation recommendations are not to paint. And then, repaint the wood as necessary, which is probably every 5 to 8 years. Again, look at the walls. Are they leaning, bowing, bulging? Are there any cracks? Are the door and window opening square, or has something shifted? And because sometimes in really old houses, you see like huge swoops in the windows. And
that'll leave them
cocked,
so they won't be able to shut right. Yeah. And there are things you can do to fix it. Some, depending on how far you want to go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the porch floors. If you have an exterior porch, you want to look for cracks, split, loose boards, missing boards, any rot. If you're they do still manufacture mahogany tongue and groove porch floor. That's pretty typical on the East Coast. It comes primed. Make sure you ask for not finger jointed. Most of what's available is finger jointed, which just means they take a lot of little boards, joint them together like this, and then that's just places where water will get in. So ask for not finger jointed. I know of a couple of hardware stores that do carry not finger jointed. You might have to call around a little bit, but it is available.
And it'll last so much longer.
Right. But they should last 50 years or more. And then the decorative elements, make sure that you paint them. That's if I was going to come out and develop a maintenance plan for your house, that's what I would come out and evaluate and look at and do and tell you what to do. Yep. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Kepperling Preservation Services, on Instagram, Kepperling Preservation. Our website's practicalpreservationservices.com. Reach out, ask us any questions. We'll try to be a resource through this time where we're all kind of in lockdown, and reach out and kind of build some community.